Test, test.
Hey, Shelley.
Wait, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? I can hear you now.
Great, great. So just to let you know, if you would remind everyone if they're going to make a motion or speak, to please introduce their name before they do it. You know, this is Shelley. I want to make a motion to approve the minutes.
We would not be expecting any motions tonight, correct?
Just the minutes. So
The minutes,
can you
right.
see my screen? Yeah.
Official business, okay.
Yeah, the only thing under other business is Peyton will be presenting the public education component of the grant. It's just like 3 or 4 slides just to get the board up to speed. Again, I did want to let you know that we will have more than the planning board members tuning in. I am expecting some of the environmental sustainability board members. So when we go around and do the roll call, if you'd ask everybody to introduce themselves, and that would include our guest on the environmental sustainability board, just so you guys will know them as well.
Okay.
So, yeah, so I see Allison's there.
Hi, can you hear me?
Allison.
Hi,
Oh, there you are. Hey.
you got me? Can you hear me?
Of course, my dog is going to, I'm going to have to put him up. He's going to hear voices and want to save me from the crowd. Let me grab him now.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to put mine on mute if I need to.
Well, usually at the top of your screen, I don't know if I can do that. Let's see if I can do it.
Mine's at the bottom of my screen.
Okay, yeah, it's either at the bottom, mine's at the top because I'm sharing my screen, but at the bottom, if you run your cursor around the middle near the bottom of your screen, it should pop up where you'll see.
I'm on the iPad, so it's different.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. Let me move my dog. Come on. Come on. Mitchell. I need you.
I see it now. It's on the bottom.
Okay.
You're gonna love.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, here we go. Shut my door. Okay. So I see Joe Joyner from Davey Resource Group is on the line. He's muted. He's our consultant that will be presenting the update, and let me send him a message.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you. So are you able to say, share your screen? Do you have a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Do you want to try to share your screen so we can
Sure.
test it? I'm going to stop sharing. And then let's see. I like your blue room, Allison. That's nice. Okay. Yep, there it is. Okay, good. So I just want to make sure it works.
Okay.
Okay, great. I'll go ahead and put the agenda back up. Share content. Here we
All
are.
right.
All right.
I'm going to go back on mute until you give me the go ahead.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you.
I think Matt and Dan and I think Nick are supposed to join us as well. I never heard from Gerald. Okay, I see Sharon Johnston's on. Nick's on. So let's see, with Walter, Allison, and Nick, I need Walter. I need one more planning board member for a quorum.
Did you say Nick is on?
Nick is on. I see Nick is muted, but he's on. So I see Walter, of course, Sharon Johnston. She's with the Environmental Sustainability Board. She's also a sitting member of the steering committee for the ordinance. Nick's on there. Peyton, our planning technician, and of course Joe. So that's and Allison, are you still there? Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay. 9 participants. So let's see. There's Allison. Nick. Okay. Robert Willite is on. He is on the ESB board. So I haven't seen Matt yet. Or Dan. So how does everybody like the virtual world of holding all our meetings virtually?
Well, so what,
invite other people on the line to introduce themselves.
Okay, let me, I'm gonna set just a few ground rules before we get started though, Shelley. So we are gonna take.
Absolutely.
And I would ask that each person, when they speak, since it's virtually, we may not know each person to please state your name. And also keep your device on mute when you're not talking, because there's a lot of background noise that can affect us all. So the first thing we're going to do is take roll, and then we'll kind of go through the agenda and do that. So this being time and place, I call us to order. My name is Walter Dixon. I'm the chair of the Planning and Zoning Board. So if we would go through the Planning and Zoning Board committee first, and then everyone else, please jump in and state your name, please.
Matt Hart.
Allison Cottingham, Planning and Zoning.
Nick, are you there? Is Nick on mute?
I don't see him now.
Shelley, you're on mute.
Okay, I was saying I see Nick on here, but I do not see where he's muted. And I just got an email from Dan saying he's having trouble with the link, so I'm going to resend that to him. I think he had trouble last time with the link here.
It says Gerald's joined the meeting as well.
Okay, well, that's right. Yeah, I see Gerald's there.
Hello.
Is that you, Gerald?
He's spinning. I think he's there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me repeat this for the planning board. We should have myself, and Allison, and Matt, and Nick, and Gerald. Is that correct?
Yes, that's who I have down.
Okay. So let's introduce the other folks that are on the line, then we'll get started.
Hey guys, sorry real quick. This is Nick. I got you on the phone right now. I don't think my microphone's working, but I am here.
Okay, good. Thank you, Nick.
Thanks.
Hey, good evening. My name's Rob Wilhite. I'm the Vice Chair of the Environmental Sustainability Board.
Hi, and Jennifer Fortenberry's here, Chair of the Environmental Sustainability Board.
Any other stakeholders on the line?
I believe Sharon was on the line earlier. Sharon Johnston.
I think Sharon's having trouble with her audio. We've been going back and forth, but Sharon's here from the ESB.
Yeah, she's on mute. I show that she's on mute, but then I'll just start with staff. Shelley DeHart, Planning Director.
Peyton Ratchford, Planning Technician.
Alec Robinson, planning staff.
So
Anyone?
that may be everyone. I don't see anyone else on. Yeah, I think we have captured everybody.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. The first order of business, this is for informational purposes, but the first part, we do have a little bit of business to do. And so I would ask someone from the Planning and Zoning Board to, if there's a motion to set the agenda for this evening.
I'll motion to set the agenda.
A second. Matt Hart.
Allison and Matt. Okay.
Allison made the motion. Matt seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. So the first item or business on the agenda this evening are the approval of the minutes. You should have a copy of that in your packet, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to read through that. And so, is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I motion to approve the minutes.
So the motion from Allison to approve. The second.
Matt Hart seconds.
Matt seconds the minutes from our, I believe that is our April meeting. So any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 And the minutes stand approved as presented.
Mr. Chairman, if you would just give me a minute, I need to send, I'm going to try to resend Dan the link. If you would just pause for a minute so I can take care of that.
I will do so.
Thank you.
Let me know. Good.
Okay, it will just take a minute. I'm just playing. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, I'm back. I sent him the link.
Okay, we're good to move on then. So the item tonight is a public information, public items, and it's item B on the agenda number 1. It's the tree and landscaping ordinance update from Joe Joyner from Davey Resources. So Shelley, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce Joe, and then let Joe give his presentation to the planning board and the other stakeholders who have joined us.
Okay, absolutely. So I'm going to stop sharing this so he can get his PowerPoint up. So Joe Joyner is with Davey Resource Group. We received a grant in 2019 from the state to allow us to update our tree ordinance and landscape ordinance. Our grant is not only for an update, it has a public education component, which Peyton will touch on in other business. We've been working on this draft. We've started, I'd say we really kicked it off the beginning of the year. So I asked our consultant to provide an update to the planning board, invited the ESB board to join in to listen while we get ready, while we're moving towards the final draft. When the final draft is ready and before we go out to the public for public comment, we will route it to, of course, the stakeholders, the steering committee, as well as the ESB board and the planning board when it's ready. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to invite Joe to present the status and sort of the framework of the direction we're going. So with that, Joe, take it away. I don't.
All right. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes,
Sorry.
I can.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the unmute button there for a second. But thank you for the introduction. And again, yes, I'm Joe Joyner, urban forestry consultant with Davey Resource Group. I met several of you a few times. And for those who I have not met, a brief background about me. I've spent the last 10 years in the industry. Prior to that, I went to the University of Georgia for grad school and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill for undergrad. And I've done everything in the tree industry, from dragging branches and feeding them into a chipper to running a crew and plant healthcare technician, and done urban forestry projects across the country. And this past year or so, I've been based back here at home in the Carolinas to develop urban forestry work throughout the state here, and excited to be working with everyone. And so tonight, I understand you all are very busy, and so I've got about a 15-20 minute presentation for you, just to give you an update on where we stand with the ordinance. And I'll just get right into it. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask at the end of the presentation, and hopefully I'll get to the highlights of it and touch on everything we need to know. So this is going to be a sort of broad strokes, and not trying to get too in-depth in the nitty-gritty, but I'm happy to do so with you via email or something outside of this meeting. So again, cover the background, and so we're just going to go over. I'm going to blow through these first few slides, as a few of you have already seen them from previous presentations, but this is just an overview of the people that have participated thus far in the project. And I'm glad to see the Environmental Sustainability Board, many of you members here tonight, and I appreciate all of your comments on the last version of the draft. They were very helpful. And I always like to start things off by reminding everybody why we're here and what we're doing. And so why are we here? And it's to update the ordinance, and I view an ordinance as a tool, like a chainsaw or any other tool you have in a toolbox or a tool shed. It requires maintenance and sharpening to keep it effective. And so what we're doing is evaluating the efficacy of the current ordinance and revising it to reflect Belmont's needs, future goals, and desired development outcomes and environmental outcomes. Where we are currently with the project was, as Shelley mentioned, the grant was awarded last year. So it's been about 3/4 of a year now that we have been working together on this project. I think we first had a phone meeting last November or December. And we are, I don't know if y'all are able to see my cursor, but we are right about here, July 2020, on the stakeholder meeting. So right now, the draft there's been 2 versions of the draft. The first version was submitted to Shelley and the planning department, and we received comments. And the second version of the draft was submitted to the planning department as well as the Environmental Sustainability Board. And we are currently working on a third draft, or call it a pre-final draft. But so we're working on another draft that I'm going to submit to Shelley, and that will be the one right before the final draft, and then we'll be going into presenting to I believe it's the planning board and city council meeting. I think we'll follow that. So we're getting near the end here. And I'm excited about what we've put together thus far. And based on the feedback that we've gotten from the first 2 drafts, I think that, as you'll see in a few moments, that what we have now is different than even what the Environmental Sustainability Board saw in the second draft. But just to recap sort of what we heard during our research and review period is, in a nutshell, that the outcomes of development as it relates to tree canopy were not meeting expectations. We heard over and over again about the shock of new development. That's a picture that I took while on the tour of the city. Just sort of putting a picture to, I guess, what people are saying when the shock of new development. So large clear cutting of land. And Belmont presents unique development challenges, and individual property rights are key in Belmont. So those are the 4 largest takeaways in terms of feedback that we got from our initial stakeholder meetings and our on-site visits and review of documents. right after that, we put out a community survey, and the survey backed up what we found and what we heard, that the majority of people said trees are important to me. 4 out of 5 people believe Belmont should regulate tree planting, and the majority of people think that, you know, they want to see the regulation on properties under development, public property, and less so on private residential property. So seems like there's broad support for the tree canopy and broad support for protecting and preserving the tree canopy during development. And what we found after reading the ordinance, there were several key areas that we thought required attention in order to achieve the goals that we heard. And then the goal that we set for back in one of our initial steering committee meetings, which was to adjust and potentially enhance regulation in order to protect, preserve, and proliferate the tree canopy of the city of Belmont for the benefit of Belmont's citizens, the community at large, and future generations. And some of the main areas that we noticed were the language and formatting. It seemed to us that perhaps it was causing some difficulty with in terms of interpreting, because there were large blocks of text, and when there's large blocks of text, people tend to miss things, and so that might have resulted in potentially some people misinterpreting some of the provisions. The environmental survey aspect, while good in theory, it was not working out in practice, as there was no tree inventory required within the environmental survey. And so that led to what the next bullet point there about the tree safe area requirements. So the tree safe area requirements, we noticed the tree safe areas were, as you can see in one of these pictures here that I took on our city tour, you have a tree safe area on the left side and a tree safe area far off in the right. And so you would get sort of scattered clumps of trees that are not really the best trees to save. And the landscape requirements required attention mainly in order so you could put the right tree in the right place. So you would be able to enhance the tree's prospective survival and eventually have a good tree there. And so that would lead towards good canopy for the city overall. And then notice that the tree protection during development required attention. And that's see a picture there that I took. And it's great that the developer wanted to save that tree, but unfortunately, just from brief driving by looking at it, you know, there might have been some better things the developer could have done to try and save that tree. And so this leads us into the key changes and features. So there's one of the things that's going to you'll notice right away would be a formatting change. So like I said, there were large blocks of text, and I think things were getting lost in large blocks of text. So what I've attempted to do is elaborate and improve on the current formatting of it. So everything, it's a tiered numbering and lettering system. So every provision and requirement you'll be able to reference. I'm trying to avoid large paragraphs. And so this is just a sample screenshot that I took of one of our drafts there. So everything will be 11.4.2, capital A to, if there was a sub requirement there or something, qualifying the capital A, there might be a little a, and that just helps, break up the chunks of text, and it also helps in referencing and understanding. The tree inventory requirement would be something that I would say is a major change, and a major change for the better, in that will help the trees that are saved during development be of higher quality. And also, the way that the current ordinance was worded is the developer would just need in certain areas when there was tree save required to only save a certain percentage of canopy, but there was no way to know as the planning board anything about that canopy, whether it was worth saving, good, bad, etc. And so the tree inventory requirement would essentially mean that the planning board will have full information on what is there, because you don't know how to best protect and preserve and save what's there if you don't know exactly what's there. And then the tree save requirements we thought needed addressing. There was only requirement for the residential with a DUA of less than 3 and none for commercial. And then also the tree protection plan. The tree protection plan speaks to what I just showed you with the construction issue there with the large tree. So when there is now going to be a required element of a tree protection plan along with the construction documents. And it wasn't that the previous ordinance didn't have tree protection spelled out, but I think that it will be more clear now in terms of exactly what the developer needs to do, and it will be a required element of the construction documents. And then, so given that this presentation is a brief overview and wanted to hit the highlights, I thought that I wanted to make sure we focused on the tree save, because this is one of the areas that we have changed since the draft based on the feedback we received from the planning board and also from the environmental sustainability board. So for those who are new to this, new to where we stand right now with the draft, the previous or the current ordinance requires tree save only for, as I mentioned, the single family residential with less than 3 dwelling units per acre. And it is 25% of mature deciduous canopy. And then multifamily residential has a requirement of saving particular trees if they're in preserved and conserved areas. But that presented a problem because preserved and conserved areas were not required elements of the environmental surveys. So then there was no tree preservation required for general commercial or industrial. And so what we have come up with right now and what we're working with on, and this is still a working table that I'll be working with Shelley after probably beginning of next week to get some thoughts on this table. And the table was put together by us with input from Shelley, largely input from Shelley and the Environmental Sustainability Board. And so we're doing the tiered tree save, and what you're looking at here is the single family residential with 20% required tree save. And another large change that the ordinance update is making is the way in which tree save is calculated. So I mentioned that there were issues with basing tree save percentage off of just the area of a property's canopy. So looking at an image of property, and you got a 100-acre property, and you can use GIS and estimate maybe there's 40 acres of canopy on that property. So what we're doing is we require a tree inventory. The tree inventory is you're required to inventory all trees that are mature trees 12 inches up and larger. And then we're basing the tree save on those trees or on a tree's critical root zone. So the critical root zone is an area surrounding the tree that is necessary for the tree to survive. And it's calculated based off of the diameter of a tree. And so the way that the new ordinance will work is so that number there, tree save required, 20%, 15%, 10%, is the percentage of the gross site area. So if you have a 100-acre property and it will be single family residential, then they are required to have 20% tree save, which is equivalent to 20 acres of tree save. And the way we're calculating that is unique in that it doesn't mean that they will actually have to have 20 acres reserved for the tree save. Because if you have clusters of high quality trees or qualifying trees 12 inches and up, then you will be getting credit for those trees critical root zone up to a certain percentage. So I don't want to get too into the weeds here given our time constraints. But that is sort of what we're looking at in terms of big changes is, and so the reason for the change is to provide the city with higher quality trees and yes, high quality trees. So I lost my train of thought there for a second. I was going ahead and reading the next line there. And so another thing about the tree save is that you're not always required to save it on site. That depends on what type of development that you are. So for single family residential, you have the highest amount of tree save and it all needs to be on site. And the first priority and requirement would be to retain your existing and qualifying trees. So if you have less than 20% of the site has trees that would qualify, then there's provisions in the ordinance where you would plant new trees on site to make up for the 20% number. And then moving down, we have the multifamily and the mixed use traditional neighborhood district. And so again, the priority would be to retain existing and qualifying trees. And if less than 15%, if you have less than 50% existing trees, then you have to plant on site to make it up. But you're also allowed to have up to 1/2 of your required tree save off-site. And so off-site methods that can qualify for tree save would be payment in lieu or planting off-site. And we have a working formula for payment in lieu that is, there's not a lot of working formulas out there. It's similar to the open space situation when y'all were coming up with that formula. I think that was a couple years back. And then general, commercial, industrial going down in the amount of required tree save. And part of the reason we were created the tiered system and to go down in the amount of required tree save was that, as you go down the list, some of these types of development provide economic benefits that, need to be considered as well. Because trees provide benefits, but so development provides benefits. And what we're trying to do here is find the balance between the two. We don't want to overly encumber any type of development. And we also recognize the benefits that trees provide. And so we're working to find that happy medium. And then we've got their historic downtown and Main Street districts that the tree save requirement is smaller. And we understand that, especially in downtown, some of the lots are smaller. There's nowhere to either plant new trees or there's not even trees on site. And so they would have a choice of meeting that tree save requirement either off-site or with payment in lieu. And let's see, it looks like I've been talking now for about 15 minutes, so I don't know if I should stop now and see if there's any questions or if.
Yeah, this is Jennifer. I have a couple of questions, and apologies if you've covered this in any of the subsequent draft reviews, but how are these percentages determined, and have we done any kind of a benchmarking against other similar kind of suburban cities that have the Tree City USA designation?
That is a great question. And yes, we have done, this is based off of other ordinances, both within North Carolina and throughout the country. And these are, the short answer, yes, that these were not pulled out of the air, that these are consistent with other communities, both of varying sizes.
Great,
Joe, this
thanks.
is Walter Dixon. I've got a question on the tree inventory. When
Yes,
and
sir.
how is that? When and how is that done, and by whom?
When and how is that done? So that would be at the beginning stages. So that would be, it would be a required element of the environmental survey. And what it needs, and I believe that the language states that it needs to be done by a certified arborist or other
Correct.
qualified professional, and the qualified professional would be a forester or somebody with experience in the industry.
That they would basically flag that somehow and then have it surveyed in on the plat to have some record of that.
Yes, sir. So the environmental survey would be, the tree inventory would be as part of the environmental survey. It would be on the eventual, I guess, construction documents showing you the trees that have, what am I trying to say here? So you're going to inventory, say, a wooded property. Let me go back to that slide and I'll use this picture here. So this picture is from a tree inventory of a property in Chatham County. That's a 78-acre property, and Chatham County has an ordinance. And so all the trees that you see there are trees that were of a certain size necessary for their ordinance. And so a forester in this case went through and surveyed those trees, and it's pretty basic. You identify the species, you identify the diameter and the condition, and you provide that in to the developer, the person requesting the tree survey, tree inventory in a Excel spreadsheet essentially. I'm actually about to go personally do one of these for a property down in eastern North Carolina, a 100% wooded 30-acre property. And so functionally, the way it works is a team of 2 people. I'm going to be going around with flagging tape, flagging all the qualifying trees, identifying them, measuring them, and putting a rating on them. And as in this case, for the county in eastern North Carolina that's doing it, it's their ordinance states all trees over 8 inches that are large growing, and then also they have an understory tree requirement for dogwoods and native holly trees.
Wow.
So it varies per county, but yes, it's somebody that knows what they're doing going out there, and generally there's a GPS component of it, so that you're able to overlay it on an aerial image. And so the purpose of it is not just for identifying quality, trees to save, but also for verification purposes for the municipality.
To keep the developer, someone getting out there ahead of us and doing things they shouldn't be doing. That's my fear, not the people flagging
Right.
it and documenting it. That is just, some way to keep somebody from trying to get
That's
around
definitely
it.
justified. That is very justified fear, and unfortunately there's not a great way that you can do, but there is already in the current ordinance, and it's required by us. I believe it's part of state law, but if let's see, trying to pull it up in front of me. I got so many screens and pieces of paper everywhere, but essentially, if the property has been logged within the last 3 years, you're not eligible for a development permit if you've logged the property within 3 years, and then it's 5 years if you're able to prove that the timber harvest was done purposefully to avoid the ordinance requirements.
Well, good. So we have in place all we can possibly have in place to prevent that, right? And that's all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And Well, I'm just going to answer Walter. Walter, you asked when the tree inventory would be done, when the environmental survey that's due at the sketch plan. So that would be one of the initial steps they would do. So it would help identify areas and let them know where the design of the development. We'd want to avoid those tree areas that we're saving.
This is Matt Hart. On the size of the tree, the caliper of the tree, is there a reason that we chose 12 and not 8 or not 10? Is it the age of what you're seeing in Belmont and the surrounding area? Or, I mean, I'm just thinking, yeah, it takes more to inventory a smaller tree, just like you're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks. But ultimately, that smaller tree is going to grow into a bigger tree. So what's the reasoning behind 12 versus a smaller caliper?
That's a good question. And the reason for that is that 12 is the benchmark that is set in your current ordinance. So I didn't want to, we've got a lot of changes going on here. And so I thought just from a continuity standpoint that, keeping it at 12 would be good. But from what I saw when we toured the city, I think that 12 is sufficient. And so I don't necessarily have an opinion as to reducing it. Like I think that reducing it would definitely be good for the environment, 100%. And it would also be, if you have a large wooded property, and that would potentially make a tree inventory cost a lot greater.
Right.
And so, because I'll tell you that the tree inventory that I'm about to go do in Eastern North Carolina is not cheap, and it's only 30 acres. Right. And it's 100% wooded. And when you're talking everything 8 inches and understory trees, it's looking like a team of 2 people, probably 4 days to do a tree inventory. And so when we're thinking about, okay, how can we enhance these regulations, but not just enhance regulations for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the environment, but we want to make sure, again, that we're not overly encumbering the development community. And so my concern with reducing the DBH threshold would be, the diameter threshold would be that it could drive costs up. And, one way that would be, it wasn't in the scope of our contract, but, being able to, and since there was not already a tree inventory requirement in the ordinance, I wasn't able to have any existing inventories to go back and look at. So that was one of the things that I would have liked to do, was to be able to see, like, well, what's already there and how has it translated into development, but I don't have any data. So with lack of data and concern over potentially putting something that's could be a high cost on developers, and potentially, I'm not saying it really would be. I'm just thinking that's my thought process there. And so you already have the 12, then it's like, okay, well, we're already adding a lot of, not necessarily a lot, but we are adding we're adding tree save requirement for commercial as it stands right now, tree save requirement where there was not previously tree save requirement. We're adding the inventory requirement where there wasn't previously an inventory requirement. My fear was, like, not to push too hard, but that is where I'm going to lean on you as the planning board to sort of make sure that I'm making the right judgment call in that case. And if y'all get together and think, hey, we'd like to see a lower threshold in that diameter, that's certainly, I'm certainly on board with that. But I'm just, that was what went through my mind when I was putting it together.
I think you got good reasoning. Maybe it's just something we look at year over year to know if it's working or not, or if we're finding that developments are maybe cutting down trees that we think should have been saved, then that threshold could be changed later on.
It may be an option that maybe if we allow the developer to use some maybe smaller diameter caliper trees, And maybe that's a pay in lieu of, or maybe it's a win-win situation, right?
Yeah,
Maybe it's a good quality tree and it's 8 inches, and maybe we give somewhere else.
That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good idea. That I'm writing that one down. That's not one that had actually occurred to me. So thank you, Walter.
So I have another.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Well, so this is Nick. I just wanted to point out, kind of to add to that. Joe, can you hop back to the chart real quick?
Yes.
So one of the concerns that I have is under the, I guess, mitigation options for your, especially when you have a site that has less than the desired, if it's not fully wooded. If you have a site like the way you have it worded right here, if you're 20% of existing trees and you would have to save the 20% that exists, if that 20% is kind of sporadically strewn about the site, that could be problematic from a design standpoint to try to work around the individual trees. So I guess in one end, you know, reducing the diameter would be helpful to have more on site so you can kind of see your options a little bit clearer. But at the same time, I think we need to raise the threshold for when you have mitigation options, because if you just said 20%, you have to use that 20%, then you're kind of forced to work around everything. Whereas it might be a good idea to have, at the very least, maybe 50% of it has to be existing, but then you do have replanting options on top of that.
Right. Right. That is a good point. The one thing I'll say to that is there is language in the draft ordinance where if the developer can, if they don't think they're able to meet it, or if they're a case like the example that you just used, where, so let's say it's single family residential, they have less than 20% they can't make up that 20% of the site area using the critical root zone of their existing trees, then there would be an option for them to go to the Environmental Sustainability Board for a recommendation. And so essentially they can present the case to the Environmental Sustainability Board, therefore, and then the planning director would have an option there to, you know, say as the developer, you know, you're running into the design issues that you just mentioned. It's like, well, look, this is what I've got. Let me try and meet the spirit of this. And then I'm going to take it to, you know, to Shelley. Shelley's going to go to the Environmental Sustainability Board. We'll review it. We're going to provide a recommendation there. And maybe that recommendation would be like, all right, we'll allow you to not have to retain all the existing qualifying trees. And then, you know, we'll let you make up the rest by planting on site.
Mm-hmm. And what I'll add to that, so if they propose a modification, it would go to the Environmental Sustainability Board for recommendation, but in most cases, these will be going through either a major development plan or conditional zoning, which would end up in front of the planning board as part of the overall development approval. So we'll know that up front. So the planning board will know about it, as well as the council when a decision's made on a development. That was a great example you gave, Nick.
Well, that kind of leads into what I was going to question when planning and zoning ultimately sees this, if it's going through us. You know, I'm sort of going back through some older agenda items, and nothing in the previous agenda items or reports, you know, for us to look at included anything about trees. You know, there's background, there's other things. Will this be something that we need to add to a form or ensure that they're covering and that we're seeing everything they're doing? I mean, I would venture to guess that with these new regulations that there are going to be regulations that are proposed that don't meet or exceed what is listed. So we're going to see it, I guess, regardless anyways. But is there a map? Is there a graphic? Is there a chart that they also have to submit to make understanding this easier from a board standpoint, and then ultimately from a council standpoint?
I'm not sure who's speaking, but I
This
would
is
say.
Matt, sorry.
Well, no, I knew that you were, I thought somebody else was getting ready to answer, to chime in. Yeah, it would be something on the staff report and within the staff report that goes before you. And since they're doing it so early, there should be a clear understanding of how they're meeting the tree requirement up front, where our goal would be just to, like you said, either a table or a graph to be able to easily decipher compliance. We could make sure that if you want in the packet the tree inventory, so you can see what was there prior. It would be uploaded on the project webpage, so all important documents like that would be, so you could see from the very beginning what was the sketch plan, what was the inventory, what is the, and compare it to the ultimate design that gets in front of you, and then we'd want to do a narrative on how they met compliance.
Right. Okay.
Hey, Shelley, this is Nick. I just wanted to clarify, is there anything specific in the ordinance that specifies at what point an applicant would have to go through the sketch plan? Because, I mean, obviously the sketch plan is more preliminary. So if there's a major change or a significant loss in like a tree save area from sketch plan to construction documents, is there a specific threshold where they would have to resubmit sketch plan?
Well, the way it works is, so we go from sketch plan, that's when the inventory would be done, to schematic, that's typically the plans that get before planning board and council for ultimate approval. Now, what happens sometimes is when you go to construction plans, all of a sudden the detention ponds are getting larger, you know, they're competing competing interests on sites, and that's when sometimes these issues or new issues pop up, where all of a sudden, okay, their pond needs to be larger, and that's going to bring them below their threshold for trees. What's written in the draft is that would be a point where they would have to propose a modification. It would have to go to the ESB board. So my guess is they'd either say, I would mitigate this additional impact by in lieu fees or offsite planting, or put some in a different area. But the way it's currently written, it would not go back to planning board and council. By the time it gets to construction plans, everything's typically administrative, but we are looking at the ESB board as that sounding board for any proposed change.
Yeah, I just want to make sure everyone understands that whatever's presented in planning board or council even is subject to change. I mean, obviously I'm referring more to 20% areas still maintained. It's just they're a little bit different shapes and sizes. So, I mean, there will be differences inevitably.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, so on the construction document, all the calculations for the tree save area and the trees used to qualify for the tree save area will be on construction documents.
Right.
So if things do change from the sketch plan between the sketch plan and construction documents, the construction documents will you'll still be able to verify that they're meeting the requirements.
Right.
And in the ordinance itself, sorry, I just wanted to elaborate further on that. In the ordinance itself, we'll have some tables, such as this table and some other tables, that are going to help make this more concrete. I know it's a little bit difficult to visualize when we're just talking about it, and so that will help, I think, in helping all this come together. Is that there will be, when we're explaining how to calculate the critical root zone and stuff like that, and how to calculate the tree save area, there will be examples or tables showing how to do that. And there's also there's state we're looking into potentially the city's looking into potentially developing a landscape manual as well. And a lot of times landscape manuals are, companions to tree ordinances. A lot of cities use those, and landscape manuals go into a lot more of the nitty gritty and of how to, diagrams and tables and charts. And, there's even some cities out there even have worksheets they'll provide to their commercial developers. And it's like, hey, this is what you need to do to show that you're a tree safe area. So when things do, as they always do, inevitably vary from the design to, the construction phase, then you'll still be able to show that you're meeting requirements.
And I'll just add, we did talk with our state representative that are managing the grants, and we did talk about a landscape guideline document to accompany this, and he is supportive, and he does want me to bid it out, but he said that he is setting some funding aside because he agrees the importance of that document to go along with ordinances, so you see it more visually, it's easier to interpret. So we are going to make that the next step when we get to the end of this ordinance.
Good work. Thank you.
All right. I think that was, so I anticipated that there would be a little discussion on that, and it looks like we're gone over my allotted time. I apologize for that. I've got a lot more. We could get a lot more into it if anyone's interested, wants to shoot me an email if you have further questions, anything like that. But just want to quickly touch on our next actions, which would be, I call it a third draft. There's technically in our contract, there's a first, second, and final draft, but I think that it's going to be beneficial for the city for me to kind of do like a pre-final draft / third draft. And I'm planning on the end of next week getting that over to Shelley so she can have any final comments on there. And then based on that, then do the final draft. And then I think after that, we've got it presented to the planning board, and I think there's city council and a public meeting as well at the end of that. And then
I was just going to add that there's a public engagement component between the final draft and before it goes to planning board and council to get this information out to the general public. And because of COVID, the state's in agreement that they want it handled virtually. So we'll be doing a virtual webinar on our draft tree ordinance and the highlights and framework, and then be soliciting comments from the general public on the draft before we actually take it forward. So just wanted to share that, and it will be distributed to the steering committee, the final draft to the steering committee, of course, the ESB board, and any other interested party will be provided a link to the draft to submit final comments as well.
Shelley, when would you expect that coming to the planning board to take action?
We are looking at kind of maybe the last week of August. We were thinking about pushing the planning board meeting off one extra week and having it on the fourth Thursday of the month, and that would give us a little more time for public comments after the webinar. So that's what we're targeting. It would be September at the latest. We are, our contract with the state is that we'll have this wrapped up in September. So now they only want to see the final draft. So if for some reason it gets pushed a little bit through the adoption process, that's okay. But they need to see the final draft, so it's important to me that at least goes to planning board so we can incorporate any comments and such that you guys may have about it before it goes to the state.
Okay, so we're looking at me moving that August meeting from the 20th to the 27th. So
Yes, if we stay on.
Hopefully everyone will take note of that and tentatively mark that on your calendar.
Thank you.
All right. Well, then that's the end. And I guess actually that seeing that picture reminds me that I forgot to turn my video on. So I apologize. You've just been hearing from a nameless, faceless person. So here I am. This is me. But thank you, everybody, for all your time. I really appreciate you giving me this much time. And everybody's been very helpful to work with and very engaged. And it's in a industry where sometimes it doesn't seem like a lot of people are that engaged. It's been refreshing working with the city, and I look forward to continuing working with you.
Well, thank you. Is that your beautiful new bride in that photo?
Yeah, that's us. That's our honeymoon in Glacier National Park right there. Right there. She doesn't know I'm using that picture, so she might be upset with me. But
He's
yes,
a newlywed, so.
Yes. Yeah. Last June.
Mm-hmm. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Joe.
Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank you.
I'll bring the agenda back up and track it down. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Great. Okay.
So the next item is other business. So Shelley, what other business do we have?
Yes. So we have Peyton Ratchford. She's the planning technician. She's actually the lead in the public education component of the grant. And she's been working with a subcommittee of the ESB board in developing this education campaign. So I can stop sharing, Peyton, if you're ready to share your screen.
Okay.
Let me stop.
Okay. I hope everyone can hear me. Yes. Okay. Okay. So I'm, like Shelley said, I'm Peyton Ratchford. I've been tasked to work on the tree education project for the grant. And so our subcommittee has come up with these tree tags that we are going to hang up around town in the parks, just kind of wherever anyone might want to hang them. We're still kind of working on it. It's very early in the process. We just kind of have a very rough draft of everything going on right now. But as you can see, we have a rough draft again of these little tree tags. So you can basically fill in different information on a website, and it will give you the monetary value of that specific tree. So we've come up with this idea to get these on like corrugated plastic signs, and you will be able to write the value of specific trees, and we're going to hang them around town. So I'm excited about that. We have kind of two different sizes we think we're gonna work with, like larger ones for larger trees and small ones for smaller trees, just so things are proportional. So that's kind of where we're going for our awareness, because we think this will be really, really fun and get people active and aware that trees are important and the benefits that come with trees. So we're also, another component of this is the website. I don't know if it will work. Let me see if I can share a different screen. Oh, let's go here. Okay. So this is kind of, again, a rough draft of our webpage that we're working on. If you notice on the tree tags, there was a little QR code, so people will be able to use that and go to this tree page that we have on our website. It's not published yet on there. Again, we're still kind of in the works of it, but we've just kind of started giving a little bit of a background, why we're here, the importance of the urban forest, and some tree benefits. And then below here, we talk about the tree tag program. I think, again, we don't really know yet. We just said maybe we're shooting for 30 trees around town. And so we're going to try to make it like a tree scavenger hunt. We thought that would be fun to maybe write on the back numbers and maybe get kids or whoever wants to involved with trying to find them. Again, just maybe something fun to do. It could be a fun quarantine activity. And we're going to try to use the Belmont Go app. That's also very early in the works, but we're working on that. So you should be able to, once this is published, you can actually calculate your own tree value if you have one in your yard, and we'll make the tags accessible on the website as well, where people can print them out, write their own tags on there, or write their own price tag on there and hang it up in their own yards. We also have this interactive map where once we get the trees marked that we would like to use for this, we'll mark it on this map so people can, find them around town. It kind of helps kind of give a general idea of where these trees will be. And then we just have additional resources that is where to plant the right tree, how trees affect property values, Arbor Day information, just some different links for the benefits of trees and such. So then I'm going to go back to this. And I just had screenshots in here in case the screen share didn't work. And so we also have a line of ready to go social media pushes once we get pictures, photos, just kind of different things to spread more awareness. Our goal for these social media pushes is for community involvement. So we have the tree scavenger hunt, most helpful tree in Belmont, a favorite tree photo, a memory of a tree, or a famous tree in Belmont nominations. We're going to think of a hashtag so people, when they do post this, we can have a hashtag and kind of gather all of the photos there and just, again, spread more awareness, because that is the goal for this project. So I just had a little example of what a post could be like once we get these up and going. So again, like I said, we're still very in the early stages of this, but we are going to try to get this done, ready to roll out by September, hopefully council meeting in September. So that's our goal here, but that's just kind of an update of where we are on that and what we're doing for the education component.
Thanks, Peyton. That's great. I think just one question, I think it came up in one of our previous meetings, but all of this great work that you've done, are we also planning on taking that to some of the local schools and hoping they'll kind of adopt that as some of their curriculum?
We are. We did talk about maybe meeting with school and hanging a tree tag there with them and kind of just making it a fun, like, this is what to do when you plant a tree, this is what not to do type thing. But we're kind of on hold with that just because we don't really know what's going on in the fall. But we definitely want to do something like that. And we thought of maybe reaching out to the library because they cater to homeschooled kids. I know they have different programs with homeschooled kids. So that's something we've talked about too. That's just, we want to do it and we definitely want to set it up in the future. But again, the fall is just kind of up in the air right now. So that might be a TBD type situation.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Hadn't thought of that. So yeah, I think it could be a homeschool activity. I think the tree hunt, aligns well with that. So
yes, definitely. So that's all I have. If anyone has any more questions, comments, I'll try my best to answer. If not, turn it back over.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Peyton. There's a lot of hard work gone into this. You know, Shelley and the whole city of Belmont and Davey Resources. I think we've done a lot in the sustainability board. Do we have any other any bit
Walter, this is
for the board?
Walter, this is Nick. I think I was on mute here. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Hey, great. So first off, Peyton, yeah, this is awesome. I really like this. It did get me thinking about something a little unrelated. As far as when we plat tree save areas, are we looking into at all coordinating with Gaston County GIS to get the maps on the website?
Yes. So what we're requiring is all tree save areas have to be recorded on plats as a tree conservation area, and then our goal is to get that integrated in, as a layer in Gaston County GIS, and that way we can track our canopy, the growth, and so forth, and loss of canopy as well.
Awesome.
Great. I did have one thing, Walter. I sent a late email out earlier today about a field trip. We have a sketch plan in-house for a large Del Webb development over on the South Fork, within the South Fork small area plan, right off of Armstrong Road. So they have invited the city council and the planning board to a field trip to their development in Fort Mill called the Orchards, Carolina Orchards, just to walk their community, get a feel for it. Now, it was a short notice, and they would like to, they've coordinated it for next Tuesday at 8 a.m. and they're providing transportation. So I was trying to get a head count on who may be able to attend that, and that, I'm sorry, my phone dinged and I forgot what I was talking about. Just in case, if there's more than, if there's 4 or more, I'll need to advertise it as a special meeting. So that's why I'm trying to find out. I know, Walter, you had indicated you were available, and I believe, Nick, you had indicated you are not.
This is Matt. I'm not able to attend.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
This is Allison, and I will probably plan to, but may meet you there instead of ride together.
That's fine.
And I have sold a couple houses in that neighborhood, so. But they're huge, so is it huge for Belmont, or?
I'm sorry?
So typically their neighborhoods are big.
They
So
are
is that what
big,
they're looking for?
Yes, so they have a sketch plan in for 800 homes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Shelley, I could meet you there too if we have to get into having too many where we have to advertise something or whatever.
Well,
I'm flexible.
yeah, no, I mean, they're providing transportation. It's just if I get 4 or more members, I have to, then it's considered a public meeting. So I have to advertise it as a special meeting. It doesn't matter if you go by yourself or with the group.
Okay.
We're all going to be at the same place at the same time, so.
Okay.
This is Jerry. I might be able to make it for a little bit in the morning with that.
Okay. So would you drive down? So we blocked out from 8 to 2. Now we don't plan on, the last time I went down and we visited that community, I think we were there for a couple hours because I believe they've invited the mayor of Fort Mill so we could ask him about the community, and their board members. So they're going to walk us through the community and share information about it. So if you can't stay that long, you can drive yourself down if you choose. So, Dan,
I'm out of town.
you're out of town. Okay. Okay. And I think that's everyone. So I will let Adrian know. So Walter, are you going to ride? So the city council members are going as well. So Walter, are you going to ride with the staff?
I'll do that. I'll just
Okay.
be at City Hall before 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That's all I have.
Jill, do you think we want to go ahead and move our August meeting to the 27th now?
Actually, that would be a great idea if we, thank you. If you want to go ahead and just get a consensus to move it to the, I think that's the 4th Thursday of the month.
If everyone's if anybody's in disagreement with that, please speak up. But otherwise, we'll just move it to the 27th.
That's good.
Okay.
Good for me.
Okay.
Let's just plan on that.
Okay, then we will officially change it if everyone's in agreement, and just mark that on our calendar.
Any other business before us tonight?
No.
If not, I entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved by Matt.
Second by Jerry.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Right. Good night.
Adjourn until August 27th at 6.
Thank you. 6:30.
Thank you all.
6:30.
All right, everyone stay safe.
You too.
You too. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.